So big important questions to ask. Where were the human trials conducted? Which doctors were responsible for the human trials? And which oversight board gave authorization to do human trials? Xanus Astra was circulating, and the only reason they cut off is because it was killing people. If it didn't cause aneurysms, they weren't monitoring anyone for any other effects. And so, Pfizer has no liability in New York where they're advertising it, and they wrote it off as a vaccine even though it's not one. It doesn't fit the definition of vaccine. It's medication at best. And they're giving that crap to you. And the Canadian board, as far as any evidence shows, they just took it for granted and they took it. They didn't even have the time for human trials and to test if it has liabilities. They're going just based on confidence in Pfizer. So mRNA affects your mitochondria, and if you have an affected mitochondria, that's cancer. You can't test for cancer in a petri dish because those cells, you got nerve touch and you feel sensation. Your cells are connected to the rest of your body. When you take it away from the rest of your body, your metabolism doesn't function the same. Your cells don't function the same. But you've got millions of different kinds of cells in your bodies, and any of them can be affected. And it's going to take 3 to 15 years for cancer to be traceable in your body, but they're not monitoring anyone regardless. You have the right that they can't force it upon you. They don't have the authorization in the government to force you to get it regardless. The government doesn't have the ability to override the founding charter of rights. But the unvaccinated were always recovering from COVID regardless. And when you take away the ambiguous death stats of the supposed deaths and the people who died with it, and you take away the narrative that the people who are in the hospital with it are there for it because the people there with it aren't there for it, then the entire legislative process is based on false pretenses. The party responsible for this, I don't know if that actually went in, the party responsible for this, they're entrenching everyone in debt. They're extorting you into getting a vaccine, otherwise you lose your homes, you lose your businesses, you lose your jobs, you lose your means of survival. And at the same time, they're making hundreds of millions of dollars off this legislature because they're buying this crap from private companies that people have interests in. But they're also able to monopolize the economy while they completely crash it. Like I was saying though, the party responsible for this rewrote Criminal Code 163 so that it's less strict than it was in the last 2 years, and it's illegal to sell pornography in our country. And yet, even though it's illegal to buy it from other governments, because that's who are selling it in these southern countries and stuff, our country is importing illegal pornography from cartels and selling it in our streets illegally, and our cops do nothing, our bureaus do nothing, our courts do nothing, our government does nothing. Our government is responsible for facilitating it and changing the legislature recently as COVID, to facilitate it, and they removed sexual abuse from the criminal code. The people in our government don't follow due procedure. They're not accountable. They're criminals, and they are not doing any of the legally required steps. None of the legal procedure to allow a vaccine to be used or studied are being done, and they're just forcing you to take it now without any research. And the legislature is all under false pretenses of biasly engineered stats that show bias towards a narrative, when in fact those stats, when just transparently reviewed, don't justify the vaccine at all and actually prove that we shouldn't be getting it at all.